Folks, welcome back to another episode of Coffee, Tea, and Crime. Today, death and tall tales in Canton, the Karen Reed murder trial. Alright folks, we're going to be up in Canton, Massachusetts. Now, when I first read over this case and did a little research on it, it sounded like a standard vehicular homicide case. Allegedly, the driver of the vehicle is drunk. She runs over her boyfriend, kills him. End of story. But unfortunately, or fortunately, I guess depending on which side of this story you're on, it has become something much more than that. This is a case where defense attorneys, halfway knowing how juries like to think, they inserted the old "it's a conspiracy" into this, what to me is just a standard hit and run accident with a fatality. Because you see, defense attorneys know that jury members watch movies and TV shows. Well, you're not going to watch a movie or a TV show about somebody running over somebody else and that's it. That's too boring. Instead, we're going to supply a nice big old juicy conspiracy. And of course, you've got the usual conspirators, which is the police. You always want to blame the police. This one here, it's even better because they're blaming the fire department and they're saying they're in on it, and I think the medical examiner. In fact, I don't know anybody in the town the defense is not saying is a part of this conspiracy to lie on their client. As we see, as we go through this case, you've got witness after witness testified they heard the suspect, Miss Reed, saying things like, "I killed him," or "I ran over him," or "I hit him." But according to the defense, that's all make-believe. They all made it up. Alright, so this is a high-profile murder trial that should not have been all that high-profile. Now, the trial started April 16th. Norfolk Superior Court in Massachusetts. Now later it became a mistrial and a hung jury. Now Miss Reed, and I'm going to use her name and her picture because she wasn't found guilty, still hanging. Anyways, Miss Reed's accused of running over her boyfriend. Now the boyfriend, John O'Keefe, was a Boston police officer. Now the only question on this would be, did she intentionally run over and kill her boyfriend or not? That'd be the only thing. Or you would think it was. Now, of course, as I've mentioned earlier, her defense is that she's the victim of an elaborate cover-up that's being framed by a group of people that includes law enforcement, the fire department, and anybody that has anything to do with this case. And not just local law enforcement, state police as well. Dozens of people are involved in this conspiracy, are willing to risk going to prison for this conspiracy. Alright, January 29th, 2022, shortly after midnight, Miss Reed and Mr. O'Keefe and a group of their friends are at the Waterfall Bar and Grill in Canton. Now, Miss Reed had consumed some alcoholic beverages. I think they even got video they showed during the trial. And then at some point, Miss Reed and Mr. O'Keefe, they went over to a home of a Boston police officer. Now, allegedly, that's where the police said all these people from the bar were going to meet up. Now, sometime around 1 a.m., court documents revealed that in the weeks before and even the hours leading up to this night on the town, text messages between Reed and O'Keefe, as well as voicemails, showed a strained relationship. Now, investigators said around 1 a.m., this is now January 29th, Miss Reed allegedly left Mr. O'Keefe a voicemail, and it says, "You are a fucking loser. Fuck yourself." And then finally, "John, I fucking hate you." Now that sounds pretty strained to me. So sometime between 4 and 5 a.m., there's a heavy snow falling, and the niece of Mr. O'Keefe said that Miss Reed was distraught because Mr. O'Keefe had not come home, was not answering his cell phone. Now, according to the court documents, this friend of Mr. O'Keefe's, who was on the phone with the niece, said she could hear Miss Reed screaming in the background. John didn't come home. We had a fight. So around 5 a.m., they call another woman whose husband was also a friend of Mr. O'Keefe. Now, at some point, you had witnesses said that while they were searching, Miss Reed was making comments like, "What if he's dead? What if a snowplow hit him? I don't remember anything from last night. We drank so much, I don't remember anything." Interesting. I wonder if we're always trying to set up our alibi, or maybe we're just babbling because we drank too much, or maybe because we've done a bad thing. So Miss Reed and these other two women, they go looking for Mr. O'Keefe. Now, Miss Reed mentions to the two women she's got a crack in one of her tail lights, and she says, "I wonder if I hit O'Keefe with my truck." That's interesting. She brought that up, allegedly. Of course, according to the defense, they're all liars. So 5:07 a.m. surveillance camera at the O'Keefe house shows Reed's SUV coming extremely close to O'Keefe's SUV in the driveway. Prosecutors say there was no taillight pieces in the driveway. Now, of course, the Reed defense team says that the vehicle did strike the other SUV, and that's what caused the damage to the taillight. Now, of course, this is all during the search for Mr. O'Keefe. Now, around 6 a.m., Miss Reed sees Mr. O'Keefe lying in the snow outside of that fellow's house they were all going to. Now, fire department shows up, ambulance, paramedics, the whole 9 yards. They show up. First responders say that Miss Reed, who's hysterical and inconsolable, keeps repeating, "I hit him, I hit him." All right, that sounds like a spontaneous utterance to me. Now, of course, the defense team says that one of the responding officers gave false and deceptive testimony to the grand jury. Oh, okay. And I'm sure the jury's just eating this up. They're just loving this conspiracy involving the police, the fire department, the medical examiner, and I'm sure the city council and the mayor and everybody else. This is amazing. All right, January 29th, 2022, the prosecutors and defense attorneys agreed that at some point that morning Mr. O'Keefe was killed. Well, that's probably a pretty good point since he is dead. I'm glad we've got some kind of closure on the fact that the victim is dead. Now, there was a Google search made about how long it would take a human body to die out in the cold. Now, the prosecutors say this Google search happened between 6:23 a.m. and 6:24 a.m. after Mr. O'Keefe's body was found. The defense says a federal forensic expert determined that the search was made at 2:27 a.m. before the police were alerted. Just another web of intrigue to amaze and entertain the jury. Now, according to the police, they said they found a broken tail light glass and pieces of the tail light at the scene. Now, toxicologists estimated that Miss Reed's blood alcohol content would have been around 0.13 to 0.29. January 31st, an autopsy is completed on Mr. O'Keefe. Now, the medical examiner ruled cause of death was blunt impact injuries to the head and hypothermia. The medical examiner did not find any obvious signs of an altercation or a fight, which is interesting because the defense is going to say he got beat up and killed by the people in the house, and that these dozens of witnesses, firemen, policemen, and everybody else are all covering up the fact that he died in the fight, which the medical examiner said didn't happen. So Miss Reed, she shows up, court, pleads not guilty to manslaughter, motor vehicle homicide, leaving the scene of a motor vehicle collision causing death. Then she gets indicted by the grand jury on second-degree murder, manslaughter, while operating under the influence of alcohol and leaving the scene of a personal injury and death. Now she pleads not guilty again. So here we go. Defense attorneys are saying that Mr. O'Keefe, the victim, was involved in a fight inside this house they were all going to. They said Mr. O'Keefe was beaten and his body later dumped outside. And they point out the wounds are on Mr. O'Keefe's arms, which they said showed he was attacked by the dog of the people who lived in that house. But I still hearken back to what the medical examiner said. He said he didn't die like that. But anyways, the state's argument is that Mr. O'Keefe never went in the house. There's no evidence that he was ever beaten. No evidence he was left for dead by the people in the house. And remember, this conspiracy is involving every agency involved in this. Everybody. Amazing. And the jury's just eating this up. This is better than the movie of the week. So, of course, during the pre-trial hearing, Reed's attorneys talk about this massive cover-up by law enforcement. Now, something that the prosecution kept bringing up is the fact that conspiracy theories are not evidence. That's a very good point. Prosecutors said that the idea that multiple police departments, think about this now, multiple police departments, EMTs, fire personnel, the medical examiner, and the prosecuting agencies are all involved in this mass conspiracy is absolutely, well, let me say what he said. Prosecutors say completely contrary to evidence and a desperate attempt to reassign guilt. Now, to me, it sounds like a bunch of bullshit. But, as is often been said, the bigger the lie, the more people will believe it. Absolutely ridiculous. This seems like this would take about 2 days of testimony and take the jury about 2 hours. 3 hours if they want to stay around and eat lunch at the state's expense. And they should have come back guilty, end of story, go on to the next case. So now during this trial, 4 paramedics and firefighters testified to hearing Reed talking about that I hit him. Now a woman during this trial who testified, she said she left the house, was leaving that morning. She said she saw a black blob laying out in the lawn. Of course, that ended up being the victim's body. Of course, the defense said that was a made-up story. She's part of the conspiracy. She's not the police or the fire department or the medical examiner or the prosecutor's office. She's just a civilian, but she's lying too. All these people testified on and on and on. When it was all said and done, the jury could not reach a verdict. Now the jurors, they took them, about 3 or 4 days. The second day, they sent a note to the judge saying they couldn't reach a verdict. Judge says, you ain't been in there long enough, go back. So then they send a note the next day, and again they say, we just can't reach a verdict. Juror says, we're deeply divided. Judge says, I'll stay in there a little bit more. So later in the day, they can't make a decision, so it's a mistrial. So they will try this case again, and I don't know what to say. Just listen to the facts of the case. The judge tells you that. Just listen to the facts of the case. Don't make it out to be something it's not. The judge even tells you, he says, just because an attorney says something in court, don't make it so. Be curious to see what happens with this case down the road.